Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello everyone, I am Darren Hupke. I'm back again with another Side Quest episode. Thanks to Matt and everyone at the podcast for letting me come back again. I previously did an episode for Jammer Lammy and talked about my love of the rhythm music PS1 classic. And I reached out and Matt was on my podcast and we talked about doing another one. So here I am back again doing another Side Quests episode. Again, I'm Darren Hupke. I do the Pixels and Polygons podcast. I also do a bunch of books and writing and things like that. Over on pixelsandpolygons.net, you can find a bunch of my stuff. But I do books on the original PlayStation library called 32-Bit Library that takes different chunks and different curated sections of the games and does like full write-ups, a bunch of screenshots, some guest essays from some cool contributors, and I collect them all together. I have a 5th volume coming out soon. It's a greatest hits collection of games, and that's been fun. I also do the Retro Game Zine. That was a monthly zine all of 2025. It's going to switch into a quarterly format next year, but it's the same essential style of release. It's going to just be an excuse to read about some classic retro games, all in a magazine format, with great contributors again, big screenshots and write-ups and essays, game histories, just stuff for gaming fans. So you can check that out on my website as well. And then I do other things like Beat 'em Up was a book on the history of Final Fight in the first volume of like exploration into the beat 'em up genre and a bunch of stuff. I hate plugging my stuff, but if you want to just follow me on Blue Sky, you can do that at darrenhupke.bsky.social or at pixelsandpolygons.net. That's my website. You can find all the links to all my stuff there. But anyway, what I'm here for today is to talk about another PS1 classic, another all-time game for me. This definitely is a top 5 game of all time, but I wanted to talk about my love and appreciation of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. So I was on board with the original Tony Hawk early on. I had the demo disc in advance, and I remember finding it at a rental store and obsessing over it, and eventually, obviously, buying it shortly after and being stuck on it. But just a great game and super addictive, like simple to kind of pick up and play, but really complicated to kind of master. And friends at the time, we would just be constantly passing the controller around for like high score chasing, like all the levels, and got really competitive with it. And it was a super good time. But less than or just about a year later, the sequel would be released. I remember reading about it on online and seeing like screenshots and everything, but also on the I believe it was the official US PlayStation magazine, but there was another demo for that, and that had a high score challenge to submit for a contest. It had the level in France that you would just kind of play through just for a quick run, and you can submit your high score. And I remember doing that, never hearing back, never knowing who actually won, and I don't remember what the prize was for that, but again, it was just something I was obsessed over. I knew how much I loved the original, and I knew what I expected out of a sequel. I just wanted more levels, maybe some more tricks and specials, maybe a few more skaters and like more videos to unlock. But essentially, that's all I needed out of a sequel. But that's part of why I ended up falling in love with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 even more, was they delivered way more than I think anybody was expecting, and I think even way more than that was necessary for a sequel at the time. It still had the standard like gameplay mode, like you can take through your skater in like a career mode type of thing, where you played through all of the game's levels, but instead of just having a handful of challenges and like high scores, there was like a checklist of challenges, and you can find like cash icons around the levels as well that you can use to buy special moves or new decks and things like that for your character. And there was just a lot more to do, like level wise. So that like instantly, like even if left alone there, that would have been, all that I needed as a kid. But having like a significant more amount of content to do just in that main mode was really unexpected and was super rad. But going through all of that, every skater had their own unlockable like video that you could still find and unlock once you completed the final competition level in the bull ring in Mexico. And you just wanted to kind of repeat that process and over. But beyond the regular skaters, there was also a creative skater feature, which at the time, like creative player modes in sports games were not new. I mean, that still had been something that was around, but definitely like the customization aspect was still like, super cool to me. Like having the ability to like, make myself and insert myself into the game as my own skater was super rad. I mean, all of the special moves you can select from or buy and unlock with the cash icons you collect. And you can also pick the inputs at which you press to do it. I remember in Tony Hawk 1, it was almost like a game of like Mortal Kombat. Like you had to memorize, what the special moves were or what the fatalities were. Like in Tony Hawk, you had to memorize everyone's like 3, 2, 4 like special moves, and like that's what, like when my friends and I would pick skaters, it was because those are the characters whose like special moves we memorized to help get a high score. But in this, essentially, with any of the characters or your created character, skater is what I'm trying to say. You could remap all those special moves to the inputs of your preference, which I think just instantly like made me like way more appreciative of like that score chase aspect, because I knew like I could have like down up triangle or up down triangle, things that would not make me jump out of a grind and screw up like a long run like in the game. And so that was just super cool. But beyond the creative skater, there's also a creative park where you could actually create your own level. These weren't like as large as like the primary levels in the game, but it was still a feature that I had no idea was even going to be included, was not something that was necessary for me to love the game, but being able to kind of put together like your own pieces, like rails, so like boxes, like fun boxes, verts, like everything you kind of could kind of string together, but they all like snap to a grid in a real smart way, and they had different like elevations that you could raise and lower, like rails and gaps too. But then you could assign and create your own gaps, going from like ledge to rail, or like clearing like getting like a high air or a gap between two vert ramps or something. But it just made it feel like more like the real game itself. But again, something I wasn't really expecting or needed for me to fall in love and to enjoy the game or to enjoy the sequel as much as I love the first game. The gaps were another huge bonus. Like they were always in the original game, and knowing which like lines had a special like gap associated with it, like for bonus points and multiplier, that helped. But in this game, there was significant improvement in the number of gaps in each level. But then there was also a gap checklist that you can go to in the options menu. And from like a completionist standpoint, it was neat to like dig into that and try and like guess where some of these obscure gaps were, because it would tell you if you had completed them or not. And actually completing all of them unlocked a secret character, which I don't know, a lot of people really ever actually were able to do that. I mean, I know I obsessed over and did it, so I'm sure there's plenty of kids like me who obsessed over that stuff. But it was a significant challenge. In this day and age, it would be tied behind like a gold trophy, or like a difficult like achievement percentage for sure to like repeat that process. But completing all of the gaps was definitely a badge of honor to do and to find all of them. But having all those in the game was really cool, and especially having like the list to kind of go back and look at. But the number one biggest improvement to the game was the ability to manual. Being able to like link flatland tricks together with a manual and balancing through just like you would with a grind. You could have essentially an unlimited combo, but you would only be able to perform a vert trick, at the tail end of it, or if you were able to launch off of a vert, with enough speed to land somewhere to continue to like manual or grind. But this just kind of really blew open the game from that score chase standpoint, and from that really competitive time I had with the first game. This really like separated like some of me and my friends. Some people would like get into a half pipe and string together like, a 4 or 5 times multiplier of like the highest scoring, like tricks, flips into grabs, into rotations and that type of thing. But those would end, but doing it in quick succession was a way to like rack up a lot of points. Whereas, players who had like a long string of like a grind with a very high multiplier, like finding those specific lines that they could have used and like repeat and everything was another way to do it. But now with the ability to manual and like link these long grinds together, that high score vert challenge, of the game was definitely not the way to go for like the highest of scores. And so like it really changed the way some people had to play to stay competitive. But it also just helped like really push like the skill level of players like a whole new level by doing that, which was just a super cool trick. They would obviously improve upon this further in the third game with like the revert, with the ability to like continue to string together vert tricks, which obviously was a smart play, and that just blew up in the game even more, especially when online play and things happened. Then I was never going to be competitive with the game again. But at this time, still highly competitive, still a pass the controller type of moment, still something that I absolutely loved. The whole roster of skaters, like of real life skaters, like at the time I was into skateboarding, and so seeing, like Bob Burnquist and Jamie Thomas and Eric Costin and things like that in the game, were really cool because I'd watch skate videos and everything of these people, and being able to like play as them in the game and then unlock their like little short video at the end was rad. And then unlockable characters, like they had the humorous like Officer Dick, like again returning from the first game, but the Spider-Man was an unlockable character from the same license that Neversoft and Activision had from working on the Spider-Man game. It was random to be able to play as Spider-Man in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 with his own special moves and everything. Super fun. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so that's just like another like cherry on top for me. But I've just talked about a game that I love for obvious like gameplay reasons, for sequel reasons, for things that, improved upon the original game reasons. Everything you want out of a sequel like this game had, and then some, and really expanded on it. But the thing that makes this game like a lasting game for me, and one that like significantly influenced just my kind of like creative and hobbies and like outside life entirely, is like because of the soundtrack. The Tony Hawk 1 soundtrack, was obviously a strong contender for, a major influence on people, with like, punk and metal and hip hop and everything like that at all. But 2 had more tracks from a larger variety of bands. It had like classic songs and stuff. It had like, like early 90s Naughty by Nature, and it had, like stuff that, was just a little bit different. Like Public Enemy and Anthrax, Bring the Noise. That was an older, like early 90s song. But then it had like modern songs, like songs I don't think they knew what would, that these bands weren't like, like go to like giant bands and all that stuff. Like having like No Cigar by Millencolin. That song was released on an album that came out in 2000. So it was just like the developers being like fans of the genre and fans of those bands and that style of music and everything, and putting together the soundtrack. But like that exposed me to like a bunch of this like underground, like independent and like punk music that I was never hearing. I like on the radio, and having access to just like the handful of CDs and cassette tapes even still at the time, like it was all like popular music or things that like parents had bought you as gifts and everything. Like nobody was listening to like punk and this stuff at that time. And of course, with the internet like exploding around this time for me, like having access to it, at like friends' house and things like that in the upcoming years and everything would definitely expose me to more. But right here, by itself, like having the exposure to Bad Religion, Lagwagon, Millencolin, like all those songs, like it's just a super awesome soundtrack that then took me from enjoying skateboarding to now enjoying like punk music and everything, and then finding buying tickets in 2002, going to like my first Warped Tour and seeing Bad Religion live, and then getting just obsessed with and becoming just completely enamored with like the punk scene and going to a bunch of shows and everything. Like I can trace the roots of who I was as a teenager and to young adult, and even into near 40-year-old like grown adult. Like still like the threads of like who I am come from like that music that I was listening to, and that can be traced like right here into like a game like this. So Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, hugely influential to me because of the inspiration it had on my personal life, but also just the entertainment value and all of the content and quality of life improvements, the style, the substance, the things I didn't want or ask for, but got along the way, in addition to what you would expect out of a sequel. It just nailed it. It is a 10 out of 10 release for me. And there are a few ways you can still play it. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake is super rad. I highly encourage you to get that. But even finding the original, it's still fun to play. It's just worth it. Go out, find it, buy it, enjoy it. But otherwise, that's my rant on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Appreciate you all for listening along. And if you want to find more of my stuff, again, I mentioned at the top, you can go to pixelsandpolygons.net or follow me on Blue Sky at darrenhupke.bsky.social or at pixelsandpolygons.net. And otherwise, enjoy your holidays, or whenever this is released, enjoy your afternoons, enjoy your weeks, enjoy your weekends, and happy gaming.
All right, Josue, let's go through our new Comic Day stack. We have a lot to review.
I know. Maybe we've gone too far.
Well, let's see. Marvel, of course. DC.
I got Image, Dark Horse,
Black Mask, Boom, IDW.
Aftershock, Vault, of course, Mad Cave,
Oni, Valiant, Scout.
Magma, Behemoth.
Wow, that's a lot. Well, all we need now is a name for our show. We need a name for our show about reviewing comic books every week. Something clever, but not too clever.
Like a pun? It's kind of cheesy.
Yeah, it's something that seems funny at first, but we might regret later on as an impulsive decision a few dozen episodes in.
Yeah, we'll think of something.
Join Keith and Josue for We Have Issues, a weekly show reviewing almost every new comic released each week, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.